Could everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nick, could you please call roll?
Mr. Hildebrandt? Mr. Sanaki?
Here.
Miss Cindy Smith?
Here.
Miss Diane Smith?
Here.
There's quorum, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So Joe, just to double check, since there's only, right now we only have 4 members, 3 are present today, so to pass anything in the affirmative, we have to have all 3 votes, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the regular meeting minutes from July 15th.
I move that the regular meeting minutes from July 15th, 2020 be approved as published.
Okay, thank you.
And I
Ed.
second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Nick, can you please call the roll?
Miss Cindy Smith?
Yes.
Miss Diane Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sanaki?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the request for a lot size and lot width variance at 21 Tecumseh. Joe, can you bring us up to speed on this?
Certainly can. So we have this kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, flag-shaped, pork chop-shaped piece of property. It's got some frontage on Main and it's got some frontage on Tecumseh. And this property was created by joining a few different lots together 2 years ago. The portion that's proposed to be split, that the variance is requested for, was apparently included in that lot combination request in error. They didn't mean to include it in the combination, but they did. It was listed, and therefore, when their combination was processed, that lot was included in the new lot. And now they are, having realized the mistake at this point, they are looking to split that back off as its own lot again, because they ultimately want to build a house on it. So what we have is also a situation where the lot that they're proposing to split is zoned R1 and the rest of it is zoned BRD1. So different zoning, and that goes directly to your question, Ed, which I'll answer or address in a little bit here. So we have a minimum lot width in the R1 district of 50 feet. That's subject also to some lot compatibility standards. In this case, we did the math, and the lot compatibility standards also require a lot width of 50 feet. So they're requesting a width of 42 feet, which is an 8-foot variance from the lot width standard. And then for when we look at the minimum lot area, the R1 district requires 5,500 feet. There is also a reference to lot compatibility standards of 1225. For that standard, in that case, when we do the math and look at all the surrounding lots, the lot compatibility standards require a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet. So the minimum defaults to the district minimum of 5,500. And the applicant is requesting a lot size of 4,620 feet. A little bit of explanation on that. So when I say that, when we look at the lots that are all fronting on that same block, basically, and you take the most common lot size among them, and when we do that, we actually come up with a smaller lot size than what's required in the district. So we're going to default to the minimum lot size being the required size for the district here, because that we have to kind of throw that number out because it came out below the minimum for the district. So what that does indicate, though, is that the average lot size on this block facing Tecumseh on both sides is smaller than the required lot size for the district. Because really everything on the south side is platted at that 42 by 110. And there are a couple that have been combined over the years, so there are some larger lots, but that's the original platting. And then the lot that they're proposing to break off is the original platted lot at 42 and 110. I've already kind of addressed the parcel configuration and history. I do want to directly address your question, though, Ed, which was, all right, you have two different zonings here. Is there a wall required between the two different zoning districts? And I guess the short answer to that is yes. When we have development in a BRD1 district, there is supposed to be a wall between that district and the R1 zoning district. Now, there's not a wall here between those two districts. And part of the reason for that is that the portion right next to the part that's going to be split off, which has BRD1 zoning now, actually had a house on it until just a couple years ago. So there was no, that had been there for a long time before that was zoned BRD1. So there was never a need for a wall there previously because you would have been putting a wall between two houses. So that house has been removed now, and you have two vacant areas, one of which is part of a larger lot that has a commercial use on it that fronts over on Main. And the lack of a wall is an existing nonconformity. It's a legal nonconformity because back when that original lots were platted and the original house was built, there was not a requirement for a wall. With regard to the wall, if a site plan was ever submitted for the BRD1 portion of the property, the wall would be required at that time. Now, as a zoning board of appeals, you have the ability to place reasonable conditions on any approval of a variance. So if you felt, for whatever reason, that it was a reasonable condition of the variance to require the construction of a wall there, that is actually within your power. You can grant the variances and require the wall. Would the wall be related necessarily to the variances that are being requested for the lot size? I think we would have to examine whether that's the case. But that's your option, ultimately. So the rest of the letter is your usual review criteria for variances, which we can address as needed. But that's the case. Unfortunately, the applicant doesn't seem to be here. So I guess if you have any questions for me, we can go through those and then proceed to, well, I guess there's not really going to be much of a public comment either. But we can go through those and then proceed to discussion.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
I
There
have
any
a question where
Okay.
it pertains to the residential portion facing Tecumseh. So when we're asking for the variance from 50 to 42, we're asking for an 8-foot variance on what, the lot size?
The lot width, yeah.
So when the proposed owner of said property wants to build a structure on said home, what are the setbacks for a house? And is there even going to be a feasible home size to fit on the lot?
Right, so the setbacks, you have a minimum of 5, and then the total of the two side setbacks needs to be 15 feet. So you have essentially, if we subtract 15 from 42, basically, you have
27.
28, right? 28?
7.
27, yes. My grade school math coming back to me. 27 feet to deal with to build a house. Actually, I happen to live in a 27-foot wide house. That's over in Berkeley. But yeah, so that's something for the applicant to be considering, of course, is that what they're probably not going to be able to do is build a house that is the same size as the average new house. They're probably going to have to do something a little smaller there to meet the standards of the zoning ordinance. But it can be done. You can definitely get a house on it.
or they would be seeking additional variances for said parcel.
If they were to not want to meet the setbacks or, just couldn't for some reason, yeah, they would probably come back requesting another variance. But there's no guarantee they would be granted the variance because they would essentially be creating the problem themselves.
Correct. And then one other question, sorry to overwhelm, but you said they were inadvertently or in error combined.
That's correct.
So initially, did they have two separate parcel numbers?
Yep.
So the original parcel number for the new proposed, is it the same or is there a difference?
In terms of
The lot size. So if parcel A, as it's constructed here
Oh,
to
I
be
understand.
proposed to be split out, does that match the original lot size and parcel that was put in?
yes, it does. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, the original independent lot was the exact same dimensions as the
So
one
they
they're
didn't
requesting to
take
split.
off an extra eighth or,
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
thank you. Nobody's heard from the applicant?
Is there somebody, Nick, is there somebody on the line?
It does appear there's a phone call in.
Okay. We could see who that is. Well, perhaps when we open the hearing, that
Okay.
person will be interested in talking.
Okay.
Ed, do you have any questions?
To reiterate, and I'll probably repeat some of what Diane was thinking, now the lot that is the L-shaped will be entirely in the BRD1 district.
That's correct, yeah.
And the lot that is the rectangle for residential is basically the same as the original plat, and it is in the R1 district.
That's correct, yep.
And did I see in the notes that these parcels are in escrow or proposed sales?
Yes, the applicant is looking to sell the split-off parcel. That's my understanding, anyway.
And do you know as an estimate what a wall would cost to build? Is it what's a reasonable?
Cindy, can you?
Oh, I apologize. Is it what's the reasonable cost would we consider to build a wall between these two? I'm
That-
assuming it would be cinder block?
Yeah, it would be some sort of concrete masonry unit or something like that. I don't know a precise answer to that question. For the length of wall required, the footings that need to go in, it would be several tens of thousands of dollars, I'm guessing. I'm not sure exactly what the number would be. The other thing, I guess, to consider is that if someone were to come in for a site plan on the BRD1 portion of the property in the next few years, and they were going to put a parking lot in that area back there, they may find themselves kind of rebuilding the wall. It depends a little bit on how things were configured, but they may find themselves kind of bumping up against the footings of that wall when they're constructing something new there. But yes, it's with construction costs being what they are right now, it's several tens of thousands of dollars, I think, to put a wall there.
But a lot in Clausen is not cheap either.
Well, now I'm just wondering
So
if
there's-
you're trying to split the lot to financially gain, is that a reason to grant a variance?
What we probably need to do, the public
Yes.
Yes, I concur.
questions, and then we can get into some of our findings of fact or whatever and proposal. So I don't have any more questions at this point in time. I
Okay.
don't know if anybody else does.
So when the error was made 2 years ago, was it the current owner?
The same applicant, yeah.
It's the same applicant?
Yep.
Okay. And then I'm assuming he's splitting that off for a single-family home?
Yes.
And do you know what his intentions are of the rest of the lot, the flag-shaped lot?
I don't think he has any particular development plans at the moment there. In the future, he may come in with something, but at the moment, he has not presented any plan for the rest of it.
Okay. And then what's the use of the property on Main, the building, looks like it's address 322?
It's some sort of office at the moment.
Okay.
That's what he's using it for at the moment.
Is there an apartment up above it?
Oh, the 620 Main.
Yeah, I think there once was an apartment above it, but it's not occupied as an apartment right now.
Okay. Okay. No other questions?
Well,
Oh, go
maybe
ahead,
I'll
Ed.
expand that. Inclusion of that parcel with the 620 probably allows them for business execution, for parking and things like that. So it's reasonable to assume that that particular parcel will stay as it is to accommodate the usages at 620. So, but it keeps it all in the BRD1 district,
Right,
and it doesn't have a house in there anymore, so.
right.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay. All right, if we have no other questions for our planner at this point, I will go ahead and open up a public hearing. It is 7:48. Let it be known there's nobody in the seats. There's no public here today.
think I do
There
see
is
a
somebody
hand.
that's calling. Nick, how can we figure out if they want to make comment?
Looks like they got their hand up, do they?
They would have to unmute because it looks like that they're on their phone. Is a phone number calling in?
Okay.
Well, you might have to correct me on this. I think to unmute on phone, it's hitting *6.
Yeah, they haven't unmuted yet. I tried to get them to talk.
Okay, so you were trying to communicate with them?
Just through our headset.
Okay.
Okay.
So the way Merge Live does it is they're able to communicate with people who call in on Zoom. And it appears that he didn't get a response from the person calling in,
Okay.
seeing if they were interested in public comment.
Oh, like a Teams thing.
Yeah, they don't have their hand raised. They've just, it's that little icon. It's a little phone.
Okay. All right, I'll get another minute or two,
Sure.
see if he wants, they can figure out how to unmute or,
I just have a question. Has the city heard anything from the neighbors in reference to this?
There's been no correspondence, no.
Okay.
but the neighbors did have to be notified, right?
That's correct. Yeah, everybody
Okay.
within 300 feet received a notice.
Okay.
Oh, no, there's no longer a phone.
It looks like they left, so
Oh, okay.
scared them away.
Let it be known that somebody hung up on us. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:50.
The other thing I should note is from a process standpoint, if the variances are granted tonight, then they do go to the city council for the final approval of the split, because city council has final approval on all lot
Okay.
splits.
Okay.
So this is not the end of the road for them if they get their variances.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
Looks like the caller joined back. I just can't get it unmute, so I'm not sure if it's staying.
Hello?
Oh, hey,
Hello?
we can hear them now.
Yep.
We hear you.
Yeah, we can
Hey,
hear you
how are
now.
you?
Would you like to make a comment?
Yes.
Name and address.
If you could
This is the,
state
is
your
the
name and
applicant.
address before speaking, please.
I'm sorry?
If you state your name and address, please, before making a comment.
Sure. My name is Mark D. Zerman.
This is the
Address is 620 South Main, Clawson. I am the applicant.
Okay.
Had some technical difficulties. Thanks for letting me on. I wanted to be able to answer any questions that you have. I've been listening in on the application process that's been submitted here. And I'd be glad to answer any questions. I would like to go back to the beginning and give you a little bit of history.
Could you speak up a bit? We're having a bit of a hard time hearing.
Sure.
Okay, that's better.
yeah, better.
I want to go back to the beginning in terms of the history of this piece of property.
Okay.
It was joined in 2019, and Lot 326, the residential lot that we are applying for now a new split and variance, was joined incorrectly. The application clearly stated that we put in that it was to exclude 326, and it was inadvertently joined together. And I never received the Giffords letter that showed the join of all of those until recently. But I'm not running from responsibility for it. It's, as the owner, it's my responsibility. But I realized that there was a problem because we were no longer getting property tax bills for the empty residential lot. So since then, zoning ordinances have changed in terms of buildable lots in there. So I want to reiterate that it was never our intention to join that piece of property with what is now an L-shaped piece of property at 620 South Main. There was a house at 21 Tecumseh that was taken down. We've talked to the city about this, and we've put in at least preliminary plans for review for drainage for a parking lot back in 2019. And so parking was planned on, you would enter 620 through Main Street, and you would park in the back and then exit off onto Tecumseh. And there is an alleyway between 620 and 610 South Main, the building next to me, and that's part of the property for 620 as well. So the original intention was to take down the house because there was the house was in disrepair. There was nothing we could really do with it because it was sort of grandfathered in and sat on a piece of property that was already zoned commercial. So that house came down, and the resulting lot that 20 Tecumseh was on, which was separate from 326, lot 326, was now going to become parking for 620. So that's sort of the history on it. As it was stated in the presentation of the application, the house directly behind it is a newer home, but it sits on a lot that is exactly the same size. It's the same footprint exists for almost all the houses behind us there, except for a few new ones that are built on double lots. So in terms of the setbacks and everything else, the footprint for lot 326, I would consider buildable, considering what's directly behind it. Of course, we'd have to meet the setback requirements that are laid out. I understand that. But I just wanted to give you a little backstory on this. So we do have a offer on the lot. Our intention is to sell it. It is the lot as well as 620 South Main, which we've occupied since about 1997, is owned by a trust, and the trust is going to sell, our intention is to sell the 326 residential lot and then sell the building as well. We've been longtime tenants of the building. If I have my way, we will stay tenants, but there will be a new owner. And that is office space. It's used as office space. There is no apartment above there. That was, I think, way before we purchased that building back in 1997. But both floors are office, and we've been there since 1997.
Okay.
I would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have in terms of some of the specific things that you discussed, if it's helpful.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
No, thank you.
I do have one question. When we did discuss these plans originally with the city, and we investigated the zoning ordinances, et cetera, the question did come up about the wall. There are other fences, let's say, in the adjacent property, the residential property that's directly behind us on Mariah's, behind 326, I should say, that separate, that act as that wall between, let's say, the commercial and the residential area. And we were told at the time that we could erect a fence, a vinyl fence, similar to the one directly behind us and along Main Street and back of some of the residential areas, that would take care of that ordinance, and we could put the fence up on the residential 326 side. Is that true?
I mean, I would have to probably look into that. I'm not sure I want to give an answer shooting from the hip. So if you come in with a plan, something will be required there. But that would be decided at that time, or reviewed at that time.
Okay. Like I said, if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thanks for the time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not.
At this time, I do not. I do have one for our city planner.
Okay.
The BRD1 lot, that's the L shape. Since that is BRD1, can a commercial business front on Tecumseh?
Yes, I believe a commercial business probably could front on Tecumseh. I don't think there's anything in the zoning ordinance stating that it couldn't.
Do you have your motion prepared?
Sort of, kind of.
Before you start, Ed, I just want to make sure the applicant heard the very beginning of the conversation. We are short a board member, and then one of our board members was not here today. So this is a board of 5. For an affirmative vote, all 3 of us would have to vote in the affirmative for this to pass. You do have the option of asking us not to take our vote if you hear our deliberations and decide. And you could postpone it to another month when hopefully our fourth board member would be here and possibly we'd have a full
Fifth.
board at that point. So I just want to make sure the applicant understands that.
So maybe a little bit unconventional, but to the advantage of the applicant, since we don't have a first board, my motion will contain a contingency that states that before you go to the city council for the lot split, that you have an agreement with the planning commission that for a retaining or a wall or a suitable privacy fence to appropriately separate the residential lot from the BRD1 commercial district, and based upon the requirements in the BRD1 commercial district, that fence or retaining wall is on the BRD1 property, or that would be along the north or on the west property line. I guess that's a correct statement. So that would be part of my motion for approval. So I think our chair is asking you to make a decision on to whether or not you want to have a full 5-member board, or you're going to go with the 3 that are here.
This is the applicant again, Mark DeZerman. I appreciate the heads up on that. Sort of a predicament for me because just going back to the history of this, we now have an offer on lot 326, and I think that a delay in this could result in the forfeiture of the offer. And so we've already waited in terms of trying to get this in November. We were like a couple days behind in terms of having it be able to get on your agenda because there's like a week and a half that's required to even get on the agenda. So I'm anxious, I guess, to say the least, but I understand the situation. So I don't know, it's a calculated risk I think that I'm going to have to take. If it does not pass, can we reapply, or is this a one and done situation?
Well, I mean, you can certainly reapply. There's definitely no.
I thought it was a year.
Yeah, I think there. Well, is there a 1 year limit on reapplication? Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, just so you understand, you can up until the time I call for the vote, you can listen to our deliberations, and up until that time, you can make the decision to pull it for tonight and wait for, the January meeting if that's the case. So, we really haven't quite deliberated yet and started talking about a motion, but possibly as we're deliberating, you may or may not get a comfort level, and then you can make that decision to pull it off the agenda at that time. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Well, why don't we try a finding of fact?
Okay.
And then that gives us an opportunity to consent on our rationale, more or less. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to enumerate the findings of fact for this lot split at, oh my gosh.
It's 21 Tecumseh.
21 Tecumseh / 620 South Main Street. It's in a dual zone district, BRD1 for the Main Street and R1 for 21 Tecumseh. Findings of fact would be is that this proposed lot split segregates the BRD1 commercial district from the R1 residential district. The proposed lot, which would require a variance of 8 feet on the width and, what was it, 880 feet on the square footage, is recognized. But the lot then is the original platted lot, and there are other newer construction homes on that street with the same lot size. Also recognize that there is a requirement for a screening separation between the BRD1 and the residential, and that it would be beneficial to the residential lot owner to have the business district erect that screening wall as a contingency for this lot, for these variances to be in effect.
Are you requesting the wall be erected upon the split of the lot, or if someone tries to plan out the business district L shape?
It would be contingent upon the split, that there would need to be a plan by the business section applicant to construct some type of a screening, either wall or fence, per the instructions of the planning commission. They'd have to have a plan, an agreement and a plan in place to do that.
So it could be subject to plan approval, but not to our variance, because we couldn't really grant the variance if we're saying it's subject to a wall that's yet to be built and then can't be built because it's weather related. Just thinking out loud.
Well, my contingency on that, as part of the discussion, is that if, for whatever reason, there was no activity on 620 South Main for the next 10 years, whoever buys that residential lot then is going on the default or grandfathered situation where, because of the build that was before, there's no wall there. So there's no time frame for anybody to do anything with that until 620 South Main Street comes before the Planning Commission. And we've had these situations in Clawson for quite some time where things are supposed to happen, but they don't happen because of this grandfather and nothing comes in. So if they want to split it, they ought to recognize that part of this business decision is that they need to put up a screening structure. It may not be a masonry wall, depending upon how the area is configured. It may be just a vinyl privacy fence.
Mm-hmm. That's what they built, and I looked on Google Earth, and the homes on Massoy, so right behind it, they all have vinyl fence. They have a vinyl fence between the BRD1 and the R1.
But is a vinyl fence going to then request another variance since Clawson requires it to be metal or wood?
No, the planning commission can make that, and the planning commission has, based upon other applicants, said the residential area would really prefer the vinyl fence because it looks less commercial than a concrete, because you could put just up a cinder block wall.
Right.
So
They
there have
prefer
been
the
other
aesthetically
instances
pleasing.
that the planning commission has said that a well-maintained structured privacy fence is very much acceptable. And sometimes, there's a difference in the heights and things like that, and it could come to agreement. I could see where there might be a good reason based upon, as you said, in other areas along that a masonry wall is not really necessary, that a nice privacy fence would be good. I've seen other instances where they put up a privacy fence in vegetation, to screen. But something, because if they sell the lot and then all of a sudden that homeowner says, well, gee whiz, everybody else has got some kind of screening from the business district, and now what do I do? And am I going to have to erect then a privacy fence on my property because the business hasn't been before the planning commission and hasn't resolved this grandfathered situation?
So to revisit, you want to erect some type of a privacy screen on the business side
That's where the fence goes.
with contingents upon site plan approval from the planning commission.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
And there's going to be some time frame with that. It's not like it's instantaneous. But they'd have to go schedule before the planning commission, agree to put up what the planning commission recommends, and say, okay, well, we'll do this, have the agreement in place. Otherwise, it kind of sticks that resident who buys the lot in a pickle.
Buyer beware at that point. There's no fence. You don't really expect it.
You'd be surprised what people complain about after the fact.
Well, then you should know what you're buying. But
Well-
that's just personal preference, not the topic on hand. So how many findings of fact were you typing those?
I had 6. I would recommend one more if you're okay with that, Ed. That to come see the average lot width on those existing homes, according to Joe, was 42. Is that correct, Joe?
On the south side.
On the south side of Tecumseh? So, this would be.
Which is that subject side and
It-
that
which
further
is-
supports.
Yeah, which is the size of the applicant's request.
Yes.
Falling in line with the original plotted land.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are there any other additions to the findings of fact?
Would you be okay with reading them back?
I will try. Okay. The first one I have, and Nick, and maybe you could correct me if I didn't get any of these all. The first finding of fact proposed was the proposed lot split will be segregating the R1 district from a BRD1 zone district. We're aware that the proposed variance is asking for 880 square feet and an 8-foot wide width variance. There are newer construction homes on the same lot size just south of this property on Massoit. We would have a requirement that there would be a screening separation between the two districts, and we would request that the screening wall be built on the BRD1 side from the commercial district. And that this would be contingent upon contingent upon the split per the Planning Commission. And the last one I had was the south side of Tecumseh. The average lot width size on the south side of Tecumseh is 42 feet, which is the same as what the applicant is requesting. Did I miss anything?
No, those sound great, thank you.
Ed, did
I think
miss?
clarification on the planning statement and
Okay.
between my conversation when Nick puts in there and what you've got typed.
Okay.
But it basically is that the applicant needs to put a plan to the city to construct the retaining wall on the BRD1 property.
If I could, I'd just like to kind of point to the standard that gives the Planning Commission some flexibility on what it approves for screening. It's in section 1033 of the zoning ordinance. And it says, the Planning Commission may approve an alternate location for the wall or may waive or modify the requirements of subsections A through H, which is what lays out that it's got to be a masonry wall and all that. Upon making a determination that proposed or existing screening will adequately safeguard the abutting residential district. So that's the provision under which the Planning Commission has in the past at times decided that something other than a masonry wall is adequate to perform the screening function. Just wanted to get that on the record.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
It helps. So given the three of us, you have to second my motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to approve these.
Those findings of fact.
To approve these findings of fact.
Then yes, I approve the findings of fact as we have.
You gotta second it.
Oh, excuse me, I second. The
I
motion.
have a motion from Ed and a second from Cindy to approve the findings of fact that we've been discussing. Nick, can you call the roll, please?
Miss Diane Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Sinaki,
Yes.
Miss Cindy Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. And I would entertain a motion for the approval or denial of the variance.
Madam Chair, I make a motion for 21 Tecumseh lot split to approve that variance of a lot width of 8 feet and a square footage variance of 880 square feet with the requirement that the owner of the two parcels bring a proposal for a screening wall or fence along the west line built on the BRD1 property to the Planning Commission and get approval and execute that wall as a contingency for these variances in preparation for the lot split.
Okay. Joe, should I ask
Just-
that?
Well, I wanted to get some clarification on the timing there before we ask the applicant if he's
Okay.
comfortable with that.
Okay.
If he, let's say he puts together a plan for a fence and brings it to the Planning Commission in January, is the Planning Commission's approval of the plan enough to move him on to council, or does he have to actually build the fence prior to going to council? Is that, how are you timing this out? I just want to make sure I'm real clear on that.
I would think that a letter of intent to the council in proposal for the lot split with the designation that they have a plan, they're going to execute it within the year timeframe that they have, would be sufficient that allows everybody to get it done. But the letter of intent, I think, would be something that was binding, that would go with respect to the request to council for the lot split, because then they would have recourse against the applicant. They split the lot, they did what he wanted, he built it, and then he didn't fulfill that particular requirement.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification.
Does that make sense? Is that doable?
I think we should ask the applicant that, I guess. Yeah. From our perspective, yes, we can shepherd that through the process. No problem.
Okay, I agree.
Okay. So this question's for the applicant. I think you've heard our deliberations and what the motion looks like with the request that there be a screening wall built on the BRD1 side. I guess two questions. Do you have an issue with that, with the fence requirement? And second, would you like us to go forward with the vote for tonight?
This is the applicant, Mark Zerman. I don't have issue with the screening wall. I'm trying to carefully describe my position on it. I don't have an issue with it because it exists in the properties that are adjacent to 620 now. So in other words, it already exists except for on the property as described, the west lot line of the L-shaped 620 South Main property. So my presumption, which is a dangerous word, is that we will match that, and I understand that it's a contingency on the variance. I have a bunch of questions that you're probably not going to be able to answer in terms of what this does to timing on closing this deal on lot 326, but I understand, and I do accept the conditional screening wall as part of the variance, yes. And I will say go ahead and vote on it.
Okay.
Before you vote on it, Mark, I want to make one thing very clear. I just want to make an offer from the staff of the city to have a call with you to kind of help you plot your course from here. And we typically do those Wednesday mornings. We actually have some open time slots next Wednesday morning. So I would be happy to get in touch with you after this meeting tomorrow and set you up just to have a little call with us so that you can discuss all that and kind of get your ducks in a row with our assistance.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mark.
I think you have to second the motion.
Yes, the motion. And the applicant said he wanted us to continue to vote.
Yes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion on the table made by Ed and seconded by Cindy. Nick, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Sinaki,
Yes.
Miss Cindy Smith,
Yes.
Miss Diane Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. I think the next, I lost my agenda. Let me get my agenda back up here. I think the next item on the agenda is public discussion, items not on the agenda, and seeing nobody in the public, I would assume, and any other folks calling on the phone? Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay. Are there other business?
I'll just mention one thing. I think we should plan on a January meeting to conduct administrative business. Get your officers reelected and all that stuff. Obviously, we've got a vacancy, so hopefully we can get a full board, maybe even up to 5 by then. I know we do have some applications in, so. But yeah, I think we should probably plan on having the January meeting to take care of administrative business. And if there's a application, so much the better. But that's what we're planning on right now.
Okay, all right.
We have one application received today, and I know we're expecting some more. So I'd be surprised if you don't have a full board by that January meeting.
Okay,
So
great.
and hopefully an alternate, including in that 5.
That would be
So
great news.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other business from the board?
I'm just curious as to what's happening with that old Burger King lot. Any news on that? Curious minds want to know.
Well, I'm happy to address that question. We have had interest on that lot several times, actually. We've had a couple people with kind of large ideas for it, for apartments on upper floors and lower floor commercial. Very recently, we had a very interesting conversation with a restaurateur who was thinking of just buying the site to use it as a restaurant, different building. But I know that various people who have had ideas for the site have had difficulty closing a deal on the property, and that's why nothing's happened at this point. I know there have been some violations issued over there too, because there's some issues with the building and some issues with the lot as well. I don't know what the status of any of that is at the moment, but I do know that some things have been issued. I'm hoping that at some point someone is successful in actually getting a deal on the lot, but I know that that's been the hurdle so far, is that everyone who's come along has had trouble finishing off a deal.
Thank you.
It would be nice to see something happen there.
It really would. The powers that be.
Yeah.
Well, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay,
Second, I have to.
all right.
Otherwise we sit here.
Thank you, too.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.